Greetings, YouTube! 大家好, Tony the Chankfilth here, or Tony Creator on DeviantArt. This has been a long time coming thanks to deadline extensions, but here's my Q&A video. I'll be answering questions that others asked back in December, but you're free to post additional questions down below. I'll get to those questions in a separate video if they're asked. T-Man 978問我, do you read from a script in your reviews? Right up until my Super Saiyan Chandra Nalar video, my previous reviews were mostly off of the top of my head. But because I couldn't think of complete sentences on the fly, I figured that, well, I needed a script to make life easier. Turns out that having a script doesn't make life completely easy for me, since I still stumble between lines and have to do multiple takes during each review. Runningbear SF, who happens to live and work in my hometown, asks me, how long have you been interested in action figures? Between 10 and 15 years. How did this all start, you ask? When I was 7 or 8 years old, I saw my cousin from my father's side of the family play with a Turbo Megazord from Power Rangers Turbo. I wanted one. After several days of pestering and good behavior in school, I finally got my hands on a Turbo Megazord. But, like any child, I wouldn't stop at just that. I eventually pestered Mom and Dad for even more Power Rangers Megazords. Not just Power Rangers Megazords, but also bootleg Dragon Ball Z figures, as well as McDonald's and Burger King's Happy Meal toys. I had a very long wish list back then. By age 13, I stopped collecting toys for a while. I had at least 3 reasons. 1, I worried that I would get laughed at by my fellow peers for even collecting toys and figures. 2, I was getting into video games at the time, so my interest in toys faded for a while. 3, money was getting tight in the family, so that money had to be used for school supplies, lunches, and bills. I eventually got back into toy collecting when I worked my first seasonal retail job in the summer of 2011. I saw Leader Class Optimus Prime on the shelf for about $21. I couldn't resist. Fast forward about 6 years of more paychecks and more toys bought at reduced prices, and you can probably guess where I am now. This question was asked by the Ramen Man, one of my newest subscribers, even though the Ramen Man didn't ask this question in one of my videos. So I'm interested. Did you ever play MTG? Cause in a vid I watched, you said that you can't afford it, which is totally understandable. It's an expensive hobby. But how did you get interested in Magic? Why follow it if you don't play? Just wondering. Where to begin? When I was in elementary school, I saw Magic the Gathering cards being played during recess, even though card games weren't allowed on school grounds. I didn't think much of the game since I was still into Pokemon and Dragon Ball Z at the time, and that was that. 20 years later, I went to my neighborhood discount store hoping to find some Transformers figures on shelves at reduced prices. What I found instead were 2 action figures from a franchise that I hadn't thought about since my early childhood. Those 2 figures were Liliana Vess and Garrick Wild Speaker. At first I bought those 2 because of their low prices and because I wanted to customize a female action figure after being on a creative hiatus. But then I started wondering who those 2 actually were. I spent many days doing just that by browsing videos in various MTG-themed websites. Turns out that they crossed paths by accident, but Garrick swore to get even with Liliana after she killed his animal buddies and inadvertently cursed his mind and body. Being a curious man, I couldn't stop at just learning about 2 characters. I ended up exploring Magic the Gathering during my free time, which I had a lot of. The rest of 2016 was never the same. Thanks to Cybenlore's videos about character backstories and the world of MTG, I started appreciating the figures that I bought along with the franchise as a whole. I even bought a Johnny Goldmane and Chandra Nalar afterwards out of my newfound passion for MTG. Plus, Chandra was good custom material, and is also now Super Saiyan material. Some of the folks from the MTG fan community have been quite welcoming, and have also filled me in on the franchise. One even became a subscriber, apparently. I can only hope that I continue to impress. Despite all that, I'm not playing the card game since I haven't learned the rules and I'm still cash-strapped these days. So, buying MTG toys for about $5 each made me curious enough to explore MTG. Hard to believe, huh? Speaking of Cyben, he'll be seeing fan art from me very soon. These are the questions that I've gotten so far. I hope that they were answered as best as possible. For those who didn't get to ask me questions back in December, feel free to ask them here in the comments below. I'll get to them in a future video. Viewers have until March or mid-March to ask them. As for what I'm working on, here's my fan art of Simon himself making his oath. Magic the Gathering fans will probably know what I mean. Thanks to real life matters, I might not finish this for a week or so, but I will get this done. Farewell, for now, but since we're still in Chinese New Year, 新年快乐.